Welcome back. I believe we're going to play a clip here from Nikki Haley. She was recently on The Breakfast Club. Let's take a listen.
Chaos follows Donald Trump. Everywhere he goes, chaos follows him. And we can't be a country in disarray and a world on fire and go through 4 more years of chaos. We won't survive it.
That was 2024 GOP hopeful Nikki Haley on The Breakfast Club, which has become a pretty important place to go for politicians who want to win office. She says the U.S. could never survive a second presidency from Donald Trump. Former President Trump, though, leads President Biden in 7 key swing state polls right now, including Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. This is according to a recent Bloomberg Morning Consult poll. He's also favored on issues like the economy, with 51% of swing state voters saying they trust former President Trump over the current president, Joe Biden. Let's welcome back Melanie, Collette, and Daniel Lippman to talk more about the landscape of the GOP primary, which is still ongoing. Great to see you, Melanie. Thanks for being with us. Daniel, also great to have you here with us as well.
Thank you, John.
All right, so Haley's appearance on The Breakfast Club came on the eve of Black History Month, and she was also asked about her recent comments on racism. Here is that exchange.
You can't say America's never been a racist country, but then talk about the racism you've experienced.
There is racism in our country. I don't think that our country was founded to be racist. I don't. I think that it was meant to be this amazing experiment to see if we could have freedom and democracy in a way that all men are created equal.
But if you didn't look at all men,
we are not there yet.
But if you didn't look at all men as equal from the beginning, then the ideology is flawed.
But why do you want kids to hear that they live in a racist country? Why can't you tell kids, look, we're not perfect and we have some more things to fix? I don't want any child to think like that. I don't want any child to believe that they're disadvantaged from the second they're born.
All right, Melanie, how'd she do?
To be honest with you, I think she did shockingly well. And I just want to make sure that I say that I'm speaking for myself and I'm not endorsing anyone as a member of Project 21. But I think in that particular interview and that particular answer was a good one. And I don't disagree with what she said.
Well, we like it when you speak for yourself, and we love your opinion on this. And, Nikki Haley, Daniel Lippman, a lot of people don't want to admit this, but she is still technically in this race and vowing to go on through Super Tuesday. What do you make of her appearance on the influential show Breakfast Club?
I think it's good that when politicians go outside of their comfort zones, we have seen how Charlemagne the God, he has said that he is not very favorable towards Joe Biden this time, even though he endorsed him in 2020. And so I'm sure the White House is working to try to do some back channeling to get him back on the Biden train. But I think it's not like there are, the majority of people in the Republican Party are white. And so she is trying to get Black Republicans to vote for her. But she's not doing that well with regular just average Republicans of any race. And so that is very tough for her.
Yeah, well, I would say this. The Republican presidential field this year was much more diverse than the Democratic field. Might have something to do with the incumbency of Joe Biden, but there is that fact. Let's leave that aside for a second and also review what happened yesterday at the Senate Judiciary Committee. They were grilling some of the big tech CEOs, including this exchange between Josh Hawley, the senator from Missouri, and Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg.
Let me ask you this. There's families of victims here today. Have you apologized to the victims? Would you like to do so now? Well, they're here. You're on national television. Would you like now to apologize to the victims who have been harmed by your product? Show them the pictures.
Terrible. No one should have to go through the things that your families have suffered. And this is why we invested so much and are going to continue doing industry-leading efforts to make sure that no one has to go through the types of things that your families have had to suffer.
Why?
So prior to the testimony, Melanie, there was some pretty dramatic testimony. Prior to Zuckerberg's statement there was some pretty dramatic testimony from family members, kids, parents who had suffered bullying, sexual exploitation, all this stuff on Zuckerberg's platforms. Is that apology sufficient from your perspective?
It wasn't, but he's in a tough spot. I'm sure his lawyers said admit no culpability. So he had to try to apologize in a way where where he wasn't handing those families a lawsuit, a gift wrap. So I'm sure he was being very careful and very measured. He's in a tough situation. I'm sure that it wasn't sufficient at all. But I also. It really bothers me that this is all kind of being put on big tech. I'm not a big fan of their shenanigans, but I really do think that there needs to be like more parenting and more attention paid for that. A lot of parents these days just don't want to tell their kids no and that they can't have it.
I mean, there were a lot of tough words, Dan. It's true. It's true. There were a lot of tough words yesterday. There was another exchange between Ted Cruz and Mark Zuckerberg that got a lot of attention, Daniel. But historically, the Senate especially has been able to kind of rein in the power of big tech. And a lot of people blame the amount of lobbying that a lot of these big tech companies spend on Capitol Hill, the amount of money they spend through their lobbying.
Yeah, they have massive lobbying shops. They used to not, and then they realized that the government could regulate them or hurt their value. And so they added, they're hiring people through the revolving door. So if you work on the Senate Commerce Committee on tech issues or antitrust, then if you have, I guess, kids and college tuition to pay or mortgages to pay, you can't really do that in the Washington, D.C. area, which is very expensive, working for the government. And so you're going to lobby. And so that no wonder we are not seeing much progress on holding these companies to account. I will agree with my colleague on our show in that before social media platforms existed, kids were going through bad stuff. But it's part of life. But obviously, the tech companies have made lots of money by not having good parental control and not doing due diligence and just prioritizing engagement, which leads to advertising dollars.
Yeah, I mean, the claim is that these companies have so much power, so much technology, a lot of the stuff that gets posted, they can prevent from it being posted with some of this new technology, especially now. We're talking about violence. People wonder why, like that massacre in New Zealand was not taken down off the internet sooner when it should have been. And that's the kind of questions that surround all this stuff. How much power and authority do these companies actually have over their own content? Melanie and Daniel are sticking around. We got more to talk about when we come back.